So not only the weather is changing, Matt, we've got some changes along with the purchase and sales agreement here in Rhode Island. What are
Yeah,
some of these big changes that are on?
I also reviewed this with our real estate attorney that we use frequently, Melissa Delana. She's fantastic. So
Top notch.
yeah, she helped me come up with these points. So I wanted to give her credit where credit is due. So thank you, Melissa. There was some 5 points that really stuck out to us in regards to the purchase and sales agreement, but also how it affects the mortgage and the process of buying a house. The first one is a date that's been added to the agreement where the buyer has to agree to apply for a mortgage by a certain timeline.
I actually like that, Matt. And if I can interject as a listing agent, I list and sell a lot of properties, Matt. I can't tell you how many times, maybe a part-time real estate agent or not even the agent's fault, the borrower doesn't come through and get on, getting the mortgage paperwork in. And I'm sure you're all over people about this too. So I actually like that that's on there. That's a solid. That's a win.
It helps tighten up the contract. It helps make everybody understand that there's a process that needs to be followed and it needs to be started at an earlier date or as soon as possible, so that way there's no back-end issues. In the event that they don't apply by a certain date, there's language in there that says that the denial letter may not be accepted, which is important because you give denial letters to get your deposit back. The second point was which is another great date, and I think that you're going to agree, is they've inserted the ability to put in a date for when the appraisal has to be ordered. I think that this can be used as leverage for buyers and sellers, depending on the scenario. And we all know that the appraisals can take are one of the longest parts of the process from beginning to end, from the time that I order it to the time that I get it back and it's approved. It's one of the biggest processes, that takes the longest. And depending on volume and time of the year and what's going on, it might take longer than others that people aren't aware of. So again, it's really important to order that appraisal. And the fact that we're putting in the contract allows us to be, even more on top of it. So there's that one. The third one is that, which is important, what it really focuses on my end of things, is that the requirement to produce a commitment letter from the lender. There is still a mortgage contingency date. And what that means is that there's a date in the contract where the buyer has to either be fully approved for the loan to close, or they have to issue a denial letter, or they have to ask for an extension on the approval from the date up until. And honestly, for the people out there, the best practice is not to ask on the contingency date. It's to ask a couple of days before the contingency date.
Set the tone.
Nonetheless, there is a mortgage contingency date that's still there. It's just the lender doesn't have to supply a commitment letter to the selling side.
Yeah.
And that's for privacy protection. They don't need to ask for a letter. Like, it's not okay if I don't give you a letter, we'll give you a verbal, commitment. The next one is contract opens up clarifies the ability for the selling side to communicate directly with the lender. So that's another good point, is that instead of this game of telephone between the listing agent to the buyer's agent to the buyer to the lender, the listing agent, now the sell side, has direct communication with the lender so that they can ask for updates and progress times, any requests. The fifth point, it was in the event that buyers and sellers don't agree on an extension to the commitment contingency date, then buyers will get their deposit back. And really, it's best practices is not to be having these conversations on the contingency dates.
Yeah.
It's to be having them prior to, so that way it's not the last minute thing, because that's not good either.